How's it going, you awesome bunch of bakers? I hope you're having a real nice day. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I have another sweet tray bake for you. So let's go to the kitchen and get started. I love the flavor of cardamom so much, and I love it even more when it's combined with cinnamon. So this cardamom and cinnamon coffee cake is right up my street. Funny enough, this does not contain any coffee, even though there's coffee in the name. The name simply suggests that this is the perfect accompaniment to your coffee, and they sure go well together. Cardamom, cinnamon and coffee. We have been selling this cake at work lately, and I thought I might as well share the recipe here too. Quite a lot of you seem to like my previous tray bakes, the brownie, the blueberry slice and the raspberry crumble cake. This time we have a nice light sponge made with yogurt, layered with cardamom and cinnamon sugar and topped with a cinnamon crumble layer. There's only 3 elements and it's super easy to make. Even if you're a complete beginner, you'll be able to make this. Even better still, it's all handmade. We don't need a mixer here. Although if you have a mixer and you want to use it, go ahead. Right, let's check out what ingredients we need. For the cake batter, we'll need some all-purpose flour, sugar, some butter, plain yogurt, some eggs, some vanilla paste or vanilla syrup, and some baking powder. You can use whichever sugar you like. You can swap the yogurt for skinny yogurt, full-fat yogurt, or sour cream. Now for the crumble topping, we need some butter, flour, sugar, and cinnamon. Again, you can use brown sugar if you want to. You can swap the cinnamon for another spice that you like. Now for the layer going through the cake, we'll need some sugar, flour, cinnamon and cardamom. You can use powdered cardamom if you want to, but freshly ground will always taste best. There are a couple ways you can grind it yourself. You can do a larger batch in a coffee grinder, or you can use a mortar and a pestle. Removing the shells one by one can be kind of a pain. This is how I like to do it. I just bash them open all at once, crack them all. And I break them up a little bit with my fingers. All the little seeds will fall out and collect on the bottom, and all the shells will be easily removed from the top. So instead of peeling them one by one, we can peel 40 at the same time. And don't discard the shells. They are full of flavor. You can use them for infusing things with. But with the shells out of the way, we can grind the seeds to a powder. And here's my tip for removing the powder from the mortar. Use a brush. It is the best tool for this job. Once you try it with a brush, you'll never look back. It makes life so much easier. And there you have it, freshly ground cardamom. To get a certain amount of powder, you'll need about double the amount of seeds. Now here's all the equipment that we'll need. A bowl, scales, a spatula, a whisk, and a piping bag. Could come in handy, but it's not totally necessary. I'm gonna use my Lloyds Pans pizza pan as a cake tin. This is the same tin that I've used for my brownie, for the blueberry slice, and for the raspberry cake. It's about 10 inches long, 8 inches wide, and 2¼ inches high. That's about 25 by 20 by 5.5 centimeters, but you can easily use a tray with a larger footprint and make the cake not as thick. But if you want to check out this particular pan, you can find it in my Amazon shop. Or whichever pan you use, line it with some non-stick paper. Cut a piece that's about 2 inches larger on all sides, and then cut diagonal lines from the corners. It should end up fitting perfectly. Okay, before we do anything, let's preheat the oven. 160 degrees Celsius fan on, and that is 320 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, first things first, let's make the filling. In a small bowl, combine the sugar, the flour, the cinnamon and the cardamom. Mix it all up and then leave it on the side for later. Our next job is to make the topping. In a larger bowl, combine the sugar, flour, cinnamon and a little pinch of salt. It's just there to balance the sweetness. Now give it all a good mix. Make sure all the ingredients are dispersed evenly. Continue by adding the butter. You want it to be cut in little cubes and you want it to be cold. That is key for getting that crumbly texture. If the butter is warm, it'll just smear and melt, and the crumble will be more sticky than crumbly. Coat the pieces of butter in the dry mix, and then piece by piece break the butter up into smaller pieces. And keep doing this until all the butter is broken up nice and small. You want the mix to be nice and uniform and nice and crumbly. It should resemble wet sand. And this is ready. Let's place it on the side and move on with the cake batter. Now for the cake, you want the butter to be melted. This will make our life easy, especially because we're mixing by hand. Now to make this batter correctly, we have to mix things in stages. So start by combining the melted butter, the sugar and the vanilla paste in a large bowl. Then grab a whisk and whisk until smooth. We're trying to melt the sugar at this point. I decided to add a pinch of salt to the cake batter as well. A little bit will go a long way. Now next up, take the flour and add 3 large tablespoons of it to the mix. Whisking in some flour at this point will prevent the mix from splitting. You can certainly use the same method for my banana cake recipe I posted earlier. Once the flour has been whisked in, continue by adding the eggs. And of course you guessed it, we need to whisk some more. Whisk until the mix starts looking like custard. Next up is the final wet ingredient, the yogurt. I'm using full fat yogurt, but you can use fat-free yogurt if you want. But come on, let's not pretend, this cake is full of butter and sugar. What's that fat-free yogurt gonna do? It's like eating fast food and washing it down with Diet Coke. Okay, in with the last two ingredients, the flour and the baking powder. Now I guess you could simply use self-raising flour instead of regular flour and baking powder. Okay, let's whisk this thing one last time. And that's it, that's our cake batter done. It is very simple, you just have to do it in stages. Like I mentioned earlier, a piping bag is optional, but it does come in handy. If you are going to use a piping bag, find a tall cup, place the piping bag inside and just pour the batter into the bag. You can find these exact bags in my Amazon shop. They are quite sturdy, you could even wash them and reuse them. There's no need for unnecessary waste. Of course, not using a bag is the least wasteful option. I like to twist it up and then tie off the end so it doesn't come open. And that's it, we are ready to assemble the cake. We have our three elements. The filling on the left, the topping on the right, and our nice smooth cake batter in the middle. Let's make this cake. Now, if you're not going to use a piping bag, there's one thing I would suggest you do. Brush the cake tin with a little bit of oil before you place the paper inside it. This will prevent it from moving around and make your life a lot easier. Okay, start by piping or spooning half the cake mix into the tin. And of course, if you're going to use a spoon or a spatula, spread it out so it's nice and flat. Now leave the other half of the cake mix on the side and continue by adding the filling. Sprinkle it over as evenly as you can. Do it gradually, don't dump a load of sugar in one spot. And definitely use all of it, even if it looks like it's too much. Now top the filling with the remaining cake mix. And a piping bag definitely makes easy work of this part. I decided to straighten out the mix with a spatula, but this is not really necessary. Okay, once you're done with that, or not, let's continue with the last part, and that's the crumble topping. And it goes on the same way as the filling does. Just sprinkle it on gradually and nice and evenly. And again, it's up to you whether you flatten the top or not. I find it easier to cut when I flatten it out like this. But it's gonna crumble all over the place anyway. Okay, let's get this bad boy in the oven, and it'll take around 1 hour to bake. If you're not sure of the doneness of the cake, take its temperature. The same principles of bread baking apply. If it reads above 94 degrees Celsius or 200 Fahrenheit in the middle, it's ready. Of course you should judge it by the color as well. And here's how it should look when it's done. And my place smells unbelievably good right now. Cardamom is just the best. Right, let's leave this to cool down for around 1 hour. And after this time you can easily cut it and serve it if you want to. But I prefer to pop this in the fridge and leave it to cool down completely. Leave it in there for several hours or even until the next day. It'll make it far easier to cut, you'll get much neater pieces. And I do this with pretty much any cake, especially at work. Brownies and things like that, they are just so much easier to cut when they're cold. But while I prefer eating my brownies cold, this kind of cake should be left to come up to room temperature before eating. Straight from the fridge, it's not going to be as soft and as flavorful as it could be. But there you have it. That's how you make a cardamom and cinnamon coffee cake with no coffee in it. It is beautiful and is delicious. And as you saw, it's super easy to make. I like to keep things simple. And I like these recipes to be quick. Weighing out and mixing all the ingredients will take no longer than it takes the oven to warm up. And once the oven's hot, the cake is ready for it. And then a couple of hours later, you can already tuck in. Or you can chill it down for the next day. It's up to you.
So what do you think of this recipe? Have you ever made a cake like this before? And have you tried any of my other sweet tray bakes? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.